Good morning. Good morning. We thank you for joining us. Another morning high five. Richard Perkins. We have Eric Perkins, Darnell Gant with us. And we just thank you for joining us. And we're going to get right into it. We're looking at Joshua chapter 4 today. And we're looking at verses 1 through 11. So I'll read it and then we'll take a look. So starting in verse 1, it says, When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, Take 12 men from the people, from each tribe a man, and command them, saying, Take 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you, and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, Pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, What do those stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord had told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the covenant had stood. And they are there to this day. For the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. The people passed over in haste, and when all the people had finished passing over, the ark of the Lord and the priests passed over before the people. Before the people. All right. I know it's a lot, but that's verses 1 through 11. And one of the main things that I saw and got from this is just that God wanted them to set up this memorial to remind them of how good he was and how great he was. How they could remember what God had done for them, remember that God was on their side as God helped them cross over the through the Jordan River on dry ground. And I think God wanted them to always be able to look back up on it, like not just be able to like talk about it, but like to physically see something that's going to spark that reminder of what God did for them. So every time they physically saw those stones, it was like, man, like that's that time then God brought us through. Like we grabbed those stones from the bottom of the Jordan River. Like that's where those stones came from. And that's just, within itself, like you're able to have that story to be able to share with, your children. Because he said like there's going to get to a point to where they're going to ask you like, what do those stones mean? Which means it's going to get to a place to where people don't know what those stones represent. And
Right.
God wants that to always be there. Like somebody's going to always be able to recall, like even if it's not them themselves, they'll know the story of why those stones are there. Like, oh yeah, my grandfather told me those stones came from when they crossed over the Jordan on dry ground. And I think just, God wants us to have those reminders. God wants us to have these physical things that we can remember how good he's been to us. And, if you just imagine somebody like, walking around that area of the Jordan River and they're going through something, they're having a rough day, but then they see those stones and remember what they represent. It's like, man, you know, what I'm going through may not be as bad because God is such a good and great God that he was able to bring, our people through, splitting this river on dry ground. So I think that's just kind of that reminder that God wants us to have. Um, Darnell?
Yeah, I agree. Kind of what I was gonna say was like there's always there God always leaves evidence and opportunity for you to be able to talk about what He brought you from. Um, the stones to me represent the evidence, like you said, and that was a great point. The fact that there's eventually going to come a time where nobody knows what they were for. But the purpose of it is to be able to say, like throughout the test, standing through the test of time, anytime somebody brings this up, we'll be able to say, because this is evidence of what God did for us. God stopped the water in this path with these stones, like through, and we were able to cross through this. And Joshua was able, to lead us through and have the people go first and the priest. And then all of that stuff ties into having evidence that God brought you through something. And you just bring it back to today on, like, there's evidence in our lives and evidence in everything that we go through every single day that's evident of how good God has been. Our age, waking up in the morning, that's evidence that God is keeping us. God has a purpose for us. And God has had a purpose for Israel. And throughout generations and generation, that purpose is still, being fulfilled. This is what God wanted us to do, and it's the same thing with our lives, man. God has brought us through so many different things, and it's so much evidence. The fact that I was able to purchase a home, that's evidence of God keeping us and preserving my mind to be able to stay focused and be able to save money. I'm 31 years old. God has kept my body. I got my health and my strength, all that stuff. Like, it's just, all of it is just leading back to evidence that God wants everybody. He wants not just believers, but he wants everybody to be able to see that this is what I do for my people. And the same thing that I could do for my people, I could do for you. So that's pretty much what I wanted to. That's pretty much what I got from it, to kind of piggyback off of your point, Rich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. The thing that I was looking at is just, if you go even back into chapter 3, where it talks about the Ark of the Covenant, the priest took the Ark of the Covenant into the river first. And when their feet hit the river, the water of the river, that's when the river stopped flowing. And all the people are crossing over. They cross over on dry ground. And then it says, if you look at verse 10, the priest bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to tell the people. So the whole time these 12 men are getting these stones out of the river, the Ark of the Covenant is there. It is there. It is, and the ark represents God's presence. So God's presence went first. God's presence was there the entire time everyone was crossing. The entire time they were taking these stones out of the river, setting this memorial. And then verse 11 says, and when all the people had finished passing over, the ark of the Lord and the priest passed over before the people.
Yeah.
So God's presence was first. God's presence was there as they were crossing. And then God's presence brought up the rear as they all crossed over. And it was, to me, it served as a reminder for us, kind of along the same lines Darnell was saying. As we go through everything that we go through, we should recognize that God's presence is going before us. God's presence is in our situation as we're going through it. And then God's presence is covering us even from behind. As after we finish going through, God is coming right behind us. He has us covered on every side, from the front, from the rear. Like, we are completely covered. And like Richard was saying, like, that's the God that we serve. Like, that's who he is. That's how much power he has. That's, like Darnell was saying, that's what he does for his people, that we don't have to worry about. Well, I mean, I know God is going to be there once I get to the other side. No, God went first. The water wouldn't have stopped if God hadn't gone, so it wouldn't have been no other side if God hadn't went first. And then the whole time they're crossing, God's presence was there. And so I think it's just encouragement for us, like, kind of like the sermon today. Like, you may have to go through some tough things, but don't think that God's not there. Don't think, oh, well, I'm just by myself. I don't, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Like, you may have to go through some tough things, but God is right there. He's already made a promise. I'm never gonna leave you. I'm never gonna forsake you. He's
Yeah.
in it. He's in it with us. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
anything else?
As I'm looking at it, just kind of skimming, one of the things that just kind of came to my mind is just how God like included all the nations in this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because he could have just had, somebody go get a stone and then we'll set it up. And this one stone could be the memorial for everybody. But just knowing how, all the different tribes are, like, let's include everybody in this. Each tribe, you grab a stone
Yeah.
and set it up so that, you kind of have some personal, like, oh, like, this is what God did for us, but this is like our stone. This is, the tribe of, Benjamin. Like, we can see
Right.
that, you know what I mean? So just, God, his plan includes everybody. It wasn't just something that Joshua did but it kind of gave them a personal attachment to it. So,
Yeah. No, that's good
Yep.
too.
That's good, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, just another shout out for those priests, man. They were second week in a row, man. Them priests,
Right.
they were real ones.
been holding it down, man.
Right? Because at a certain point, like, okay, everyone's across, right?
Right.
You want to do some more stuff? Oh, Joshua, come on.
Right.
Joshua, like, if they had watches, I'm sure they were looking at them like,
Right.
come on, Joshua. You see what's going on. Let's go. But
then they, these are like big stones. Like he said, them carry them on their shoulder.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's not
That's
just
what I was thinking about.
Put one in your pocket and go across. Like, no.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, but no, I think like Darnell said, like you were saying, Richard, like all of these stories that we read, even though they sound like kind of like spectacular to us, and we may not see anything, just like this today, all of these were written to help us believe.
Yeah.
To just help us believe that, look, if God could do that, like, the things that I face, I just need to remember he's with me too. Like he could stop this river from flowing. And that, like we talked about once before, like that was just the sign that, look, everything else, once you get to that land, like everything else is gonna work just like this. Just like I took care of this, I'm gonna take care of every nation you have to face. So just encouragement, more encouragement to just get them to trust. And I think that really is like most of our biggest challenges, like learning to trust God, like, oh man, because some of the stuff that we see, we're just like, man, it looks bad. You sure, God? You sure you got me? Like, God's going, look.
Or it take too long.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to us that we want to second guess, and God's going, look, I got it. I got it. Right. So,
hey, real quick, just to go with that point, my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rich.
No, yeah.
But just to go with that, like, do you know how frustrated you get when you tell somebody that you got it and they keep like, yo, you sure you know what you're doing?
Right.
Like, bro, I got it.
Right.
It. Chill. No, you sure? Because you seem like it's taking you a little bit longer. I got it. Like, so can you imagine how frustrated God can get with us when we be like, God, okay, I thought you was gonna do it, or can you do it? Like that trust, and he's like, man, I told you over and over, and I gave you evidence that I got it covered. Like I can handle it.
Nah, that's a good point, especially when you can't do it. Like what is questioning me helping you? Like even if I said no, you still can't do it.
Right, 100%.
Like, I'll let you just like back up off me. Like, let me do this, that's a great point.
Get on my deck. Right.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
For me, it just I don't know, just kind of reminded me of you know how, because they were getting ready to go into battle to take their land, and even just to be able to look back at the rocks, at what God had, you know, done for them previously before going into the next battle. I kind of thought about it like, you know, how sometimes team like Darnell, I don't know if you guys had anything like in your locker room that you guys like touched or slapped like on the way out. It's just kind of like that reminder, like you're getting ready to, you know, go into battle. But you
Right.
just kind of, you know, something like I know like Notre Dame has like play like a champion, you know what I mean? And they, you
Right.
know, just kind of
Mhm.
reminds them and gets them ready before they go into a
Right.
battle.
Like a phrase,
Right. And
or a mascot, certain stuff. Yeah, we didn't
yeah,
have it, but we definitely had been to other arenas that had it, and it was like interesting to see. And everybody, you know,
everybody
it
slaps
kind of gets
something
you
there.
hyped. Everybody
Right.
slaps it and goes
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's
like, you know,
actually
you
cool.
I kind of put myself in like, you know, they see the rocks, like, all right, you know, let's do this. Like, you know, we getting ready to go
Right.
over here in
Right.
Jericho.
Right.
Like, let's do this. Yeah.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. No, I mean, all great points. All great points. Unless there's anything else, we really appreciate you. You know, all of you who are watching. Thank you for joining us. We hope you know, we were able to give you just something to think about, something to look at, and to encourage you to just continue to trust God. That's
Yep.
what all of this is about. That's what the
Yeah.
whole Bible is really about. Is
Mhm.
just to encourage us to trust God. Back
Yep.
up off his neck. Trust. Don't be all on God's neck. Just trust
Right.
him. He
Breathe you
knows
all
what
up
he's
in
doing.
you.
But yeah, we appreciate you being with us. If God says the same, we'll be back next week doing it again for our Monday morning high five. Thanks for joining us.